You hear it all the time during the playoffs of any sport. The two greatest words a sports fan can hear. Game 7. And I mean, it's true with anything. You can tell me there's a Game 7 for a bungee jumping contest and I'll be watching. The simple idea of a winner-take-all game is good enough for most sports fans to be at least somewhat intrigued, even if it's not even their favorite sport. But there's nothing like a Game 7 in baseball. Postseason baseball in general is electric, but of course in a Game 7, hanging on every single pitch, there's nothing like it. And whether that Game 7 is in the form of a literal Game 7, a first round Game 5, or a wildcard winner-take-all game, it's always so awesome. And after implementing the wildcard game format for a while, the two wildcard teams would battle things out for just one game. And in hindsight, it was stupid. I mean, just think about it. You play a 162 game baseball season, 6 months worth of games, 7 if you want to include spring training, all for it to come down to a single game. I always found that wrong because, like Andrew McCutcheon said years ago, baseball is a game of series. It's not meant to immediately come down to one game. And that's so true. I always thought the wildcard game should be a 3-game series instead, which is what it is now. And I always put it this way. If the ball doesn't bounce your way once, you deserve a second chance. If the ball doesn't bounce your way twice, it's not your year. Since the wildcard game turned into a best of 3 instead, we actually have 4 3-game series now to kick off the postseason because the division winner with the least amount of wins, so the 3 seed in each league, is now forced to play a 3-game series against the 6 seed while the 4 seed plays the 5 seed, and the 1 and 2 seeds get their first series being a best of 5. And since this new format has been introduced, we have gotten a total of 1 winner-take-all game in the wildcard round. There's been 8 wildcard series, and only one of them had the 2 teams splitting the first 2. Every single other one has had someone getting swept. That's pretty nuts, and hopefully that changes because the best games are the ones that are do or die, obviously. It's more fair now that it's 3 games rather than just 1, but immediately having that one, as unfair as it was for baseball, was definitely must-see TV. And even though it's been an entire decade, no other wildcard game has or may ever top what happened on September 30th, 2014. The Oakland A's were in Kansas City for the first Royals playoff game since 1985. And there's a lot at stake here, considering, well, if you win, you move on. If you lose, James Shields is on the mound for the Royals, and John Lester, someone who was in a different uniform at the start of the season, is pitching for the A's. And both of these teams had pretty opposite outlooks in this moment heading into this game. The Royals and their fans couldn't be happier. Although the team was pretty freaking close to winning the division, finishing just a game back of Detroit. I mean, we're talking about a 30-year playoff drought being broken here with the privilege of a home playoff game. So they're just very thankful for that, obviously. As for Oakland, little bit of a different story, but before we get into that, today I've teamed up with DraftKings to talk to you about the DraftKings Sportsbook. Whether you've been watching your favorite team from the screen at home or the ballpark in the stands, there's an even better way to get in on the action. Check out my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers who bet $5 will instantly get $150 in bonus bets. So you can watch your favorite team. I mean, is there any better deal than that? Well, now's your chance to do that. So don't miss out on all the action this week at DraftKings. All you have to do is download the DraftKings app today, sign up using the link in the comments or description through my promo code iTALK. Once again, sign up using the link in the comments or description or through my promo code iTALK, that's ITALK, for $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Do so responsibly, have fun, and now back to the video. The A's, after winning their division in 2012 and 2013, really struggled in the second half of 2014 after finishing the first half in first place, 23 games over 500. Going on to end up 10 games back of the Angels, which seems so foreign in the context of today, with Oakland just barely squeaking into that second wildcard spot, just a game ahead of Seattle. So part of the feeling is that they shouldn't even be here, while on the other side, the young and hungry Royals exceeding expectations, if anything. In the middle of the 2014 season, the A's offense, one that already wasn't great, would lose Yoenis Cespedes in a trade to the Red Sox, sending him to Boston and making that sacrifice in order to get John Lester, with outfielder Johnny Gomes being the fill-in to help with Cespedes no longer being there. Lester, who was an all-star in 2014 for the 3rd time of his career with the Red Sox, ended up pitching just as well after the Oakland trade, making 11 really solid starts and winning 6 games for the A's down the stretch. And part of what you were were getting with Lester was what he's done in the postseason. His career postseason ERA to that point was 2.11 in 11 starts, over 76 innings. I mean, he didn't foil in the big moment. So it was a no-brainer to have him take the ball in this situation, a game Oakland had to win. On the Royals side, James Shields was in his second year with the Royals, and he was awesome in the most important ways imaginable. Not only was he good, but he made every start and racked up innings, leading the American League in innings the year before, and in 2014 threw about the same amount. So like Lester, Shields was a no-brainer for KC in a game like this, and your first thought is, this is going to be a pitching duel, right? Well, yeah, but baseball being the most chaotic sport there is, one that makes as much sense as Iceland being called Iceland yet having less ice than Greenland, this game was anything but a pitching duel. Coco Crisp would lead the game off with an opposite field knock, and 3 batters later, the cleanup hitter, Brandon Moss, would send a James Shields changeup, I think that was, over the A's bullpen, immediately 2-0. Well, looks like Shields doesn't have it, but now the A's have a lead with postseason stud John Lester on the mound. He's not also going to give it up, is he? Oh. The Royals offense would immediately get to work, putting a couple guys on with 2 outs, so when Billy Butler smacked one in the left field, they were on the board. Lester would get bailed out in that inning as that being the only run scored, and Oakland's still on top, but a couple innings later, that wasn't the case. Another 2-out hit would tie the game, this time courtesy of Lorenzo Cain, and the next man up, Eric Hosmer, would pop a baseball that somehow found grass to bring home Cain, and the Royals are now on top. The crowd's going wild, and James kept them happy. The 4th inning, a quick 1-2-3. John Lester, same thing, keeping things right where they are, only for Shields to continue doing the same. Strike 3, see ya. A harmless little grounder second, 2 outs. A full count pitch to Coco, strike 3 looking, and Shields just keeps on rolling. But after yet another John Lester 1-2-3 inning, it was now beginning to look like what it should have been from the start, a pitching duel. That's now 2 very quiet innings, but Oakland would quickly change this trend in a big way. It took just 2 batters into the 6th inning for James Shields' night to be over, and he wasn't even awful. A broken bat loop that just finds grass and a 3-2 miss to walk Donaldson. If this was a regular season game, Shields likely stays in, but when your season could be over within the next couple of hours, the manager is going to manage a little differently, and so in comes the rookie, the late Yordano Ventura, to take it from here, and after 2 balls to Brandon Moss, Moss would take a 98-mile-an-hour fastball from Ventura and send it just as far as he did the first homer, but this time to dead center. So thanks to Brandon Moss, the A's have 5 runs on the board in this game and get the lead back. Next up, Josh Reddick, base hit. And after getting the 2nd on a wild pitch and then 3rd on a sac fly, Ned Yost was back out, putting in Kelvin Herrera, and just when you think the Royals are about to end the inning, Derek Norris hits a grounder up the middle, 6-3. Next up, another grounder up the middle, this time fielded, but Escobar can't get the ball out of his glove. The line keeps moving, and it didn't stop there, with Coco Crisp placing one in the center. Norris comes around 7-3 Oakland. And unlike Shields, Lester stayed in, pitching well, throwing yet another quick and easy 1-2-3 inning, a couple harmless grounders and a punch-out. In the 7th inning, with the A's still up 7-3, Lester didn't stop. Gordon looks at strike 3 on just 3 pitches. Salvador Perez, grounder to Donaldson, 2 outs. The Royals couldn't get anything going, resorting to a bunt that would work, only for Mike Moustakas to fly out 2 pitches later. 6 outs away from Oakland going back to the ALDS, and out comes John Lester for the 8th, and at this point you're thinking he's going all the way. Or at the very least, that's the plan, and you're also probably thinking how in any reality this could be the greatest wildcard game of all time. I mean, up until the 8th inning, it's been exciting, but of course not a typical all-timer. That's where the rest of this game comes in. Alcides Escobar, another grounder by a Royal, but this time it gets through. Leadoff single that would eventually make it to second. Another grounder to second would trade an out for a runner on third. Up comes Cain, and he hits yet another ground ball, but one that becomes a hit, and the Royals are back on the board at 7-4. And just like Norris couldn't throw out Escobar, neither does he throw out Cain. Eric Hosmer then walks, and Lester's night is done. In comes Luke Gregerson, one of the many dominant arms that Oakland had in 2014. Gregerson was arguably the best that season, actually, out of everyone, and he wasn't even the closer, but he didn't really have elite strikeout stuff, which basically played a role in that. So expect more contact out of Gregerson, and as expected, the literal second pitch gets smoked into right field for a base hit. Cain scores easily. It's a 2-run game, and all of a sudden, it almost feels like the Royals are in the driver's seat. Only 1 out, 2 on, down 2. Norris then fails to throw out another runner, this time being the toughest challenge yet. Pinch runner Terrence Gordon scorer who to this day has just 85 career plate appearances over 8 seasons, and this was his first. The second and third, still only 1 out, so how about a wild pitch to bring home Hosmer? Royals make it a 1-run game. Gordon then walks, things continue to unravel, and for what seems like the first good thing to happen to Oakland in hours, Gregerson gets 2 straight strikeouts to end the threat. Things looked like they were about to end up a whole lot worse than it did, and it's still just a 1-run game now, but Oakland is now just 3 outs away. Would be nice to get another run across again, and thanks to 3 walks, they were able to get the chance to really help themselves out, but couldn't cash in. Royals still down 1, and in comes that closer, Sean Doolittle. I mentioned the last guy in, Gregerson, not having great strikeout stuff, despite ironically going on to get the only outs he got in this game on strikeouts, but Doolittle was a strikeout guy, averaging almost 13 per 9 through the regular season, and the Royals game was clearly to get on base, to be scrappy, to find ways to push guys through, so in order to avoid any of that madness, swings and misses were key here. So of course, with 2 strikes, one of the game's best strikeout guys gives up a fly ball where nobody is, and Josh Willingham starts things off with a single. Now Willingham, a guy whose last year ended up being this year, 2014, was actually a very good hitter over the 11 seasons he played, one of them even being in Oakland, and he was only a Royal for a few months before retirement, getting traded there in August from Minnesota for Jason Adam, who, fun fact, is currently in the league as a really good reliever, something he's been for years with the Rays, and was just traded to the Padres, the team he signed with after leaving the Twins in 2016, the team he was traded to in exchange for Willingham. I know that's a lot, and it doesn't really have that much to do with this, but it's crazy how much things connect at the end of the day. So Willingham's on first. Oh wait, no, that's not Willingham, not anymore. That's pinch runner Gerard Dyson, who would now play the most pivotal part of this inning, giving Derek Norris yet another thing to worry about. Dyson would make it to second, but not on a steal, rather a bunt by Escobar for an out. Dyson would then make it to third, and Norris would continue being consistent, failing to get him on the steal attempt. And so, because of a fly ball where nobody was, a bunt and a steal, the Royals now were just 90 feet away from tying this thing. And on the very next pitch, a fly ball to right, plenty deep for Dyson to crawl home, tie game. A bullet to short sends this thing to extras. The A's wouldn't do a damn thing in the 10th, with the Royals immediately doing what they do, putting a ball in play for a leadoff hit, a bunt to move him over to scoring position, a grounder to move him to third, and with 2 outs, Perez pokes a grounder for what has to be the most stressful routine grounder possible. You mess up, that run scores, you're done. And it's so simple of a play, it's probably so easy to mess up, but he didn't, and on to the 11th we go, where Josh Donaldson would connect for a hit, but the A's would strike out twice and bunt for an out otherwise, still 7-7. In comes Dan Otero for Oakland, yet another good arm who had been dominant all year long, but 3 pitches in, another leadoff single, and almost like these Royals were just programmed robots at this point, another sacrifice bunt to move him over to scoring position, then a soft grounder to short for the second out, and just like the inning before, the Royals' winning run is now 90 feet away with 2 gone, and also just like the inning before, they get out of it, still 7-7. The A's now take a move out of Kansas City's playbook, getting their leadoff guy on, and then butting him over to second like they literally were just like, alright, try whatever they're doing, we have no other options. A wild pitch would move Reddick up to third, now with just 1 out, so all they needed to do was just get the ball in the air, and you have the lead until Alberto Callaspo said, I'll do you one better, slapping a base hit to left, and just like that, Oakland's back up by 1 and 3 outs away from a win. 2 harmless outs after that keep it at 8-7, and out comes Otero again to try and get another scoreless inning, and for the first time since the 7th inning, the A's get the leadoff hitter out. 2 outs away, 2 strikes on Hosmer, and he hits a fly ball to left center that hits off the top of the wall and between Johnny Gomes and Sam Fuld, far enough away for Hosmer to get all the way to third. Just when you think things will go more smoothly as the A's get the first guy out, the next guy ends up on third alone. And in typical 2014 Royals fashion, what does the next man up Christian Colon do? A high, unfieldable chopper as Hosmer gets home. Tie game. Out comes Otero, in comes the lefty Fernando Abad to face Alex Gordon, getting his job done, and in comes another deadline addition that season. Jason Hamill from the Cubs to face Perez. Colon immediately sprints to second, and this time Norris couldn't even attempt to throw out a base stealer, as he couldn't even catch the ball. A pitch out that was solely meant for him to just get up and gun it down to second. Perez fouls off a high breaking ball to keep the at-bat going, and it was the very next pitch, a slider low and away, that would put the cherry on top to one of the best and most chaotic games in baseball history, and the best wildcard game in history as the Royals walk things off. And the funniest thing about about this game, well, at least to me, I was asleep during pretty much the entire 8th inning on. It was past my bedtime, I guess. And I'll always remember waking up the next morning expecting to casually look at a box score showing an A's win, only for my mouth to drop when it said what it really did. Don't get it wrong, there's been some fun, intense winner-take-all wildcard games in the decade that's followed, but this specific one has yet to be topped. Will it finally get surpassed by a crazier game exactly 10 years later? It'll be tough. Let me know what you think, and thank you for watching.